I don't believe that anyone is coming into the United States of America or the UK, as a matter of fact, because they want to bring about a Salafist-style Islamic caliphate in London. I know you won't agree with me on this.
It's not about whether I agree. It's about whether the facts agree with you.
I don't think that's the case.
Hold on.
I think ultimately,
let me just give you some facts then. We have a terrorist attack on a monthly basis by an Islamist, effectively. We just had 2 in the space of the last month as we're recording this. 33%, I think, of British Muslims want Sharia law in Britain, like, according to polls. More than half want to ban...
I haven't seen these polls.
Well, we can put them in for people to see. More than half want to ban homosexuality. Right? So when you say people aren't coming in to introduce an Islamist stuff, well, some of them want to.
Immigration has always been around from the beginning of time. People have been displaced. People go from country to country. So the question is of immigration, opening borders to just anybody. When you come to a host country, do you transform yourself to the country you are in, or do you want the country to transform to you?
You're Venezuelan originally, like your family came from Venezuela, your family came from the USSR. You guys are the most British people I've ever encountered.
I have a very British face, yes. You are correct.
Yeah, exactly. You're British to the bone.
Yeah.
And yet your families also came from countries that were somewhat far away from England, right?
Yeah.
And I'm Turkish. I grew up in Turkey. My whole family lives in Turkey still, with some exceptions. And I would say I'm pretty assimilated to American culture. I grew up being fascinated by American culture. I grew up consuming American pop culture, as do many people all around the world. And what I always find interesting is when people focus on the newcomers, to say that this is actually destroying the social fabric or social cohesion, not realizing that there are a ton of polls conducted on this stuff. I can just speak for America, especially, where by the second generation, assimilation is almost complete. And by the third one, it's like virtually impossible to distinguish in terms of performance, educational output, and job performance in general. It's just like everyone becomes American.
That's not true in the UK, though, unfortunately. So if you look at, for example, Islamist radicalization, second and third generation Muslims are much more radical than first generation.
Yeah.
So we're not, that's the issue that a lot of people in Britain are concerned about, is not everyone's assimilating the way that the 3 of us have done.
So here's the interesting point about that. Well, 2 things I want to address. First, like I said, people assimilate. And they become a part of the
some people
normal forces of society. They become a part of the culture, or they bring some aspect of their culture into British culture. You know, they change the cuisine, and people seemingly enjoy it, even if they also simultaneously go attend an EDL rally and then, you know, get a little quick curry afterwards, or a little kebab on the side. But beyond that, the reason why people are angry is always going to be because the trains are not running on time, because the NHS is improperly managed due to underfunding. That's what I believe. I think it's always an issue of underfunding, where they're not getting the same services that they once used to, and also things are becoming more and more costly. So in that anger, it's much easier for them to be guided by the right-wing forces, to turn around and say, you're angry and you're right to be angry. And the reason why you're angry, the reason why all of these things are happening, is because we are importing all of these random strangers into the country who don't speak your language, who you are scared by. And that, I think, causes division, and it causes friction that makes it harder for people to integrate. And that is part of the reason why I think, especially in a place like the UK, you see a little bit more of this resilience towards full-blown integration into society.
I also think as well, Hasan, if we're being honest, it's also because we have had such huge amounts of immigration come into the country that people understandably go, this pace of change is too much. And you have to think, let's go back to 2016, which was the Brexit referendum. Now, Brexit was about many things, but really it was about people wanting immigration to be lowered. And that was nigh on 10 years ago. Immigration hasn't been lowered. In fact, it's been ratcheted up. So people people voted to lower immigration. And for instance, I voted Remain. People voted Brexit. I'm like, well, that's democracy. We get on. We're going to make the best of it. I do believe that when you ignore people's wishes at the ballot box and people explicitly vote for something and you ignore them for the best part of a decade, that does generate a lot of anger, and understandably so.
Yeah, I think in that same time frame, if there was enough appetite by the government to address the financial harm that people were experiencing, the economic struggles that people were experiencing, there would still be a lot of people who say, I don't want a brown person, I don't want a black person around in my neighborhood. But ultimately, those numbers would be far smaller. And that's what I always go back to. I'm a leftist. I believe in economic improvements, and I believe that a lot of the reactionary forces actually take advantage of that instability, the economic volatility that exists, in an effort to shift the attention away to people who have the same exact interests as you and I do. Because ultimately, I don't believe that anyone is coming into the United States of America or the UK, as a matter of fact, because they want to bring about a Salafist-style Islamic caliphate in London. I know you won't agree with me on this.
It's not about whether I agree. It's about whether the facts agree with you.
I don't think that's the case.
Hold on.
I think ultimately,
well, let me just give you some facts then. If that, we have a terrorist attack on a monthly basis by an Islamist, effectively. We just had 2 in the space of the last month as we're recording this. 33%, I think, of British Muslims want Sharia law in Britain, like according to polls. More than half want to ban.
I haven't seen these polls.
Well, we can put them in for people to see. More than half want to ban homosexuality. Right? So when you say people aren't coming in to introduce an Islamist stuff, well, some of them want to if they're in a position to do so. We have 5 MPs who are effectively elected on a sectarian ticket, like as in we are Muslims, vote for us because you're a Muslim.
Who would you say those MPs are?
The 5 independent MPs. They're called the Gaza MPs or whatever way you want to call them. Right?
Are you talking about like Zara Sultana?
I don't know if she's one of them. I think one of them is called Adnan Hussein. There's 5 of them. We can look them up. We can put them in for people to see. Right. So I think it should be said that the overwhelming majority of British Muslims don't want Sharia law. But if 33% of them do, you can see why a lot of people who don't want Sharia law might be concerned about that, right?
Sure. I don't know what I haven't seen these polls, and I also don't know what British Muslims, or the 33% that are saying they want Sharia law, like what they're talking about. The counterexample always is, I mean, there's plenty of right-wing forces in the country that also want to ban homosexuality. Or trans people in general, right?
No one wants to ban trans people in Britain. No.
Okay. Well, that's not what I have seen so far, but maybe I'm wrong on this.
What do you mean?
But I feel like there's a lot of this is a point of contention for you guys as well. But it's like, when you want to ban trans people altogether, when you want to remove access to medication for trans people to transition and conform their own gender identity, you don't start off by saying we want to altogether ban trans people. You start off by trying to find the most successful approach that the broadest majority of the masses would be in tune with, would be in agreement with, and then you slowly but surely expand on it.
Wouldn't that be like me saying, well, you say you want socialism, but actually you're a communist because you just want to edge your way towards communism step by step? I mean, that seems like an unfair way of looking at it.
No, my retort to that would be that while I don't call myself a communist, I don't have an issue with an end goal of communism. I don't think it's like I just think that it's probably not likely to happen, a stateless, moneyless, borderless society. But moving towards that end goal, I don't have any real...
You'd like communism in America?
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe. And it feels, especially at this point, it feels far too utopian to achieve. So while I think that the concept in and of itself is not one that I disagree with, and I don't think you would either. Don't you think it would be nicer?
I grew up in a communist country. I very strongly disagree with the concept of communism.
The USSR was, as you know as well, trying to implement communism. They never actually were able to successfully implement communism.
How do you mean?
Well, it wasn't a borderless, moneyless, classless society, right?
That was
It would
never
be
the
like,
goal of communism. It was never to be a borderless, moneyless society.
no, that is what communism is.
Well, that's not how the communists in Russia defined it.
Well,
There was a big debate within communism quite early on, which was about, are we pursuing a global
yes.
state of communism?
Trotsky
Or
versus Stalin.
are we,
I'm
right,
very familiar.
right. But for our audience, this might be worth explaining.
Yeah.
Some of them they basically recognized the only way you might ever get to a communist society is if everyone in the world gets it. Otherwise, there will always be a capitalist system to which people would be keen to defect. Or, this is the Stalin option that they ended up going for, is you pursue communism within the realm of one country. And in order to do that, they took the wealth away from people who had it. They tried to distribute it to everybody else. They tried to create a state of equality, uplift the poor, as you were talking about. And actually, if you take those measures alone, they were very successful at it.
Mhm.
The only problem is they ended up putting millions of people in camps in order to do that, creating a tyrannical regime with a secret police that murdered people. And that is the reason communism, in my opinion, doesn't work, is because in order to achieve that goal of equality, and basically you're making everybody equally poor as the end result, you actually have to use a lot of force, right? So that was communism, what we had in the USSR.
Well, that the end goal was never successfully achieved in the USSR in terms of establishing what I'm talking about, though. And that's why I'm saying it's important to understand and recognize the failures of this implementation in the aftermath of a socialist revolution and choose not to repeat those mistakes.
So how would you do it differently?
Well, that's the reason why I pointed to China. China is run by the Communist Party of China. It bills itself as communist. China is not a communist country. Would you say China is a communist country?
It's a mixed country. It has some elements of communism, but it's also got a lot of capitalism going on.
Yeah,
right?
so it's a mixed market economy is what you're saying, right? But so is the United States of America if you look at it from that perspective, because America also has some semblance of social safety nets. The UK also has some social safety nets, some state-run enterprises, especially pre-Margaret Thatcher, I would say, versus private enterprises as well. I wouldn't say that China is a communist, and neither would you, but it's run by a communist party. And so far, they have seen a pretty successful, pretty robust level of growth and development overall.
The challenge is, Hasan, when you centralize power and you give practically all the power to the government, what happens with that is you're far more likely to have corruption, you're far more likely to have abuse of power, and inevitably what happens is that the government can't do everything. There are things that are far better done by private practice than done by state control. So if you
agree with that. Would
you
you also agree that there are things that are far better done in the hands of the government, or at least with like heavy market regulation and intervention?
I completely agree.
Because like healthcare, I think is a great example of this, where like it's an inelastic demand good and service, right? If you don't have healthcare, you die. So you will pay whatever price you have to pay for healthcare. And therefore, I think the American system that is the most maximalist, most capitalist, most like free enterprise system has been an abject failure in terms of delivering good results. And what I mean by that is healthcare as a whole is supposed to improve people's living standards and also make sure that everyone is getting the best quality care possible, right? And in the United States of America, we don't have that. We do have nicer hospitals that resemble hotels as opposed to like...
I'll be honest with you, it'd be difficult not to have a nicer hospital than the UK, mate.
Yeah, no, but I understand that. I'm from Turkey. I've seen the Turkish public hospitals, but I would rather try to focus on the diminished quality of service and try to improve that in a socialized system than to altogether limit healthcare at the point of being able to pay for it. We also experience a similar dynamic. We just don't see it in the same way because it's not the most direct form of authoritarianism, where a lot of people think, well, as long as I can eat a Big Mac, as long as I can watch TV, as long as I can consume porn and gamble on the unregulated crypto currency market or gamble my modest income away, what remains after I give the rest to my landlord, then, you know, things are probably fine. And I think we dull our sensibilities in that regard. And I think it's a different form, it's a different mechanism of control that makes you think that you are actually an active participant in this.
I mean, I think that's quite a stretch, Hasan, with all respect, because the difference between, I mean, we talked about some societies that have attempted to pursue communism, China, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, etc., right? The difference between those countries is not that they can't eat a Big Mac. The difference is that if they criticize the government, in Russia today even, but of course in the Soviet Union previously, you're going to get killed, right? In America, that's not what happens, right? In America, you don't get.
We don't know yet. We don't know where we're going to go yet.
I mean, Hasan, to be fair, you're a very successful.
I agree with you.
You in China or in the Soviet Union would be killed if you were critical of that regime.
I would definitely be jailed.
You'd definitely be jailed.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
so that's the difference between these countries and America. It's not a Big Mac, it's freedom.
I found some of your comments really interesting about Luigi, and I'd love to talk to you about them. So you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, push back on me if I'm wrong, that you think that he's innocent and unfairly maligned. How did you come to that position, if I'm correct?
Well, I mean, that's a meme for the most part. But,
okay.
But
what does it mean? It's a meme.
We're
like
the notion,
we're not boomers, but we're like elderly millennials.
The notion that someone is innocent until proven guilty, or that he wasn't there. It's like a common thing that people do on TikTok and elsewhere as well. But
you don't think he's innocent?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's the one that actually did it or not. We'll see once the court case finalizes.
But is he? Sorry, I may not understand what meme means in this context. Like, I guess what I'm asking is, when you say he's unfairly maligned, do you believe that or not? That's what I'm asking.
What I mean by this, Americans are very draconian. They're very black and white. It's like you do a crime, you get punished, and a lot worse than you would get punished elsewhere, right? There are millions of Americans out there that have individuals in their lives that they loved, loved ones, immediate loved ones, distant relatives that they've seen suffer in their final moments as they, you know, go through the process of trying to figure out the paperwork in a system that is designed to, let's be real, take as much money as possible from you in the form of premiums and then create a profit incentive by refusing to pay for the healthcare.
Hasan, I get all that, and I empathize with that pain that those people feel. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is, you said he's innocent, then you said it's a meme, you say it's just a thing that people say. What I'm trying to understand is...
The reason why people say that is because I think...
Their anger doesn't make him innocent, right?
No,
if he shot a man who runs a healthcare company, healthcare insurance company, and they are angry with healthcare in America, that doesn't make him innocent, right?
It doesn't.
So isn't you and them saying that just flat out wrong?
Well, my reason for saying it is because you're innocent until proven guilty.
So we have seen over the last few years this mass immigration into Europe that has had open borders. And we saw what was happening in America as well in the last administration, where the borders wide open. And the question is, as human beings, is it our responsibility and duty to welcome any refugee or any immigrant, whoever wants to come to your country? Is open borders appropriate? Is open borders something which is incumbent upon humans to do, to always let anyone into your country? Or should we have closed borders? And having closed borders, is that being narcissistic? Is that cutting yourself off from the world? Well, the question became a question only after, when certain immigrants immigrated to a country, and instead of adopting the ways of the host country, they are asking the host country to adopt their ways. And that's when things become problematic. I just look at my own backyard. I grew up in New York. In the 40s, right after World War II, there was a mass immigration to America. At first, America was limiting the amount of refugees it will allow from Europe. But eventually they opened up the gates and allowed the millions who fled Europe, who was up in flames, to come to America for a new dream, for a better dream, for an opportunity to restart life once again. Ellis Island was the processing where the ships would dock and the immigrants would come off. And there were all types of issues with immigrants arriving with diseases, not healthy. And it wasn't a smooth, easy transition. But America absorbed these millions of immigrants. From the Jewish world, we came to America to become American. We came with a mindset that we're not here as victims, and we're not going to force America to accommodate us to become like us, but we wanted to become American. Becoming American means becoming free people, being allowed to practice your religion, being able to allow others to practice their religion even if they're different than yours. But more than that, what the Jewish refugees and immigrants did when they arrived at the shores of America, they rolled up their sleeves. They went to work in the sweatshops. They went to work any job that was available. And they started off with menial jobs, sweeping floors, anything that they could do to contribute to America. And the Jewish world truly dived into the American society. We lost many Jewish people who have assimilated, became totally American, and forgot the Judaism. But a vast majority remembered the Judaism and learned how to coexist. Being American and Jewish can coexist together. The Jewish contribution to America is well noted, and through the amazing heights that they were able to reach, literally from rags to riches, by hard work, by being focused on the goal, by knowing what's important. After living through everything they have lived through, they have learned to appreciate the small things. And that has been the success of the Jewish people in America. And this is probably why they hate us so much, because we have been able to succeed and get back on our feet so quickly. And the world war was amazed. You just survived the Holocaust, losing 6 million of your own. That's a third of your nation were gone. And look how you landed on your feet. Look how you just got right back into it. You learned the language. You went to school, you sent your children to school, you became doctors, you became lawyers, you became accountants, you became business people, you became entrepreneurs. You built yourself up again. And this is what Judaism has taught us. No one has a right to claim the victimhood card. Whatever you've been through in life, you cannot change what happened, but you can change how you react. So the issue that we're dealing with in Europe, in France and in England and London, where you have these communities that now are forcing Sharia law on the communities. And the sheer amount of the population who are in favor of Sharia law is becoming a great threat to the sovereignty of London, of England. England, one of the oldest kingdoms, is going to be falling to Sharia law. Well, this is something that America needs to take heed and take a look and ask ourselves the question, are we ready for this? Is this what America is all about? Is this what we're waiting for? Is this what we worked 250 years of trying to create, carve out a new world order, a new country that people can be free? Free of the tyranny, free of the slavery, free of being controlled, free of the death and carnage that has been throughout Europe and Asia and the Middle East throughout all these years. We finally found a new land, a new country with new hopes, and that is the land of the free. As we approach the 250th anniversary, we need to think strong and hard about it. That everything our forefathers fought for, everything that we have fought for, to maintain the freedom that we have. And this is why God has blessed us, that America has become the superpower of the free world, because we worked for it. We worked very hard for it. We shall continue. And we cannot allow any evil forces to break that. We need to stop it and stop it in its place. And God willing, if we all come together in unity, light will push away the darkness. And not only that, it will transform the darkness into light. God bless you. God loves you.